Become a patron at www.patreon.com/Golden Era Bookworm for hard to find books, scans of rare photos, and articles on the Golden Era of bodybuilding. Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here. Today I'd like to talk about the second type of diet that was followed during the Bronze Era, and that is the Lacto-Ovo vegetarian diet, which was adhered to and popularized by many physical culturists during that period of time. One of the greatest advocates of such a diet was the physical culturist Bernarr Macfadden, whom many consider the father of physical culture in the United States. Featured in this photo, Macfadden was an interesting character to say the least. He, like Joe Waiter, was an entrepreneur and went to great lengths to popularize physical culture, which I will touch on today. He also advocated an array of what one could say extreme health theories, and at one point became a millionaire and even ran for president. As you'll also see in many photos, he was really proud of his hair. Really interesting character. So today I will briefly touch on the biography of Bernarr Macfadden, which is way overdue on this channel, with a focus on his approach to diet and nutrition. Enjoy! And just to quickly recap from my previous video, the two major diets that were followed during the Bronze Era included the high protein fat diet, which I previously spoke about in a previous video, which mainly, as the name suggests, was very high in protein and fat and included raw, cooked beef, pork and mutton, eggs, milk, cream, poultry, fish, and of course lots of fruit and vegetables, whole grains such as rice, starchy carbohydrates such as potatoes, and believe it or not, a lot of strongmen drank a lot of beer back then. And for these people that follow this particular diet, they usually ate 3 large meals a day. However, the focus of today's video, being the Lacto-Ovo vegetarian diet, included milk, eggs, fruits and vegetables, plenty of rice, grains and potatoes. And one of the interesting things was that Bernarr Macfadden actually, who promoted this diet a lot, only believed in 2 meals a day. And as I mentioned before, veganism was not necessarily practiced by bodybuilders, strongmen, or most physical culturists back in the day. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about Bernarr Macfadden's biography. He was actually born Bernard Adolphus Macfadden and lived from 1868 to 1955, and he actually thought he would live up to 150 years of age. He actually changed his name to Bernarr because he thought it sounded like a lion's roar, and that might actually explain why he had such a massive mane for a haircut. Maybe he wanted to be a lion himself. But anyway, he was definitely America's most prominent physical culturist in the very early 1900s. And although he did practice bodybuilding, he was pretty much a fanatic when it came to nutrition. And a fanatic overall when it came to physical culture, so much so that he even tried to start a religion based on physical culture called Cosmotarianism, and opened several institutes called healthatoriums where people practice physical culture. It is even said that he tried to open up a utopian city called Physical Culture City. I mean, pretty crazy. And at the time he practiced raw food and fasting, which were, at least at that time, considered extreme practices. He was definitely very vocal and against processed food and medicinal drugs, believing that food is the best medicine. He published hundreds of books, and even opened, I think, the very first vegetarian restaurant in history. And he was actually the mentor of the later famous Charles Atlas and Jack LaLanne. Besides advocating fasting and eating raw foods, as well as avoiding processed food, Macfadden advocated a vegetarian diet rich in milk and actual green vegetables. And in fact, he actually called the diet, in some of his books, the milk and greens diet. So Macfadden's vegetarian diet was rich in raw milk and eggs, and he actually did occasionally have meat, although he preferred not to. He enjoyed whole wheat grain, rolled oats, plenty of nuts. He actually thought they were a superfood, and mainly enjoyed pecans and almonds. Lots and lots of salads. This is why I've got raw milk and salads, especially of green vegetables, in bold, because as I mentioned earlier, he basically called this the milk and greens diet. Lots of raw green vegetable salads, and even ate his potato raw at times, that is. His dressing would compose usually of lemon juice, olive oil and salt. As I said, he didn't like having much processed foods. And desserts, some of his favorite desserts were just milk with dried fruit. He'd also have stewed fruits, etc., raw fruits. So yeah, he was real advocate of such a diet, the vegetarian diet, the Lacto-Ovo vegetarian diet. Here is an example of an ideal vegetarian menu as advocated in Macfadden's book, Eating for Health and Strength, which is now available on my website. Now for breakfast, Macfadden would recommend, for example, starting off with oranges, having whole boiled wheat with nuts and raisins. He was big on dried fruit, and having some milk, especially raw milk. He was big on always drinking raw milk and not the pasteurized version. Now, back in the day, dinner was actually lunch and supper was dinner, so just bear with me with that. So for lunch, he recommended, for an example, bean soup with whole wheat bread. He hated processed white bread. He actually was completely against its consumption. He would also recommend for lunch cabbage or cauliflower dressed with butter sauce and a macaroni and cheese. And for dinner, he would recommend, for example, having some kind of a mush, and by mush he actually means ground corn served with plenty of milk. It's actually a favorite here in Germany. They call it Brei, right? And it's basically just ground corn served with plenty of milk. It's a favorite supper here, right? And a lettuce or a fruit salad. So this is what he would recommend as an adequate vegetarian menu for the day. And now further to his vegetarian menu, I'd like to share some of Macfadden's tips that I've read through his books. For example, he was a big advocate of eating 2 meals a day, saying that if he ate 3 meals, he actually felt rather lethargic, although he does admit to having snacks throughout the day when he's on a 2 meal a day diet. That was a bit interesting there. Now, he also recommended fasting every week on a Monday for 2 days, and he has even reported that he at a time ate only once a day, although he apparently lost quite a lot of weight on such a diet. For meat eaters, for people that can't get away from meat, he does recommend only eating 100 grams maximum a day. And here is a very interesting way of looking at physical culture, I guess, at least back in the day. Bernarr Macfadden, when asked, how much should you eat if you are on such a diet? Well, he says, if the skin on your belly is not as thin as the skin on your biceps, then you are overeating. And that's how you should judge how much you eat. So I guess in a way, very wise words from Bernarr Macfadden. A lot of us do count calories. And I guess if the fat around your belly is way too much, then you are definitely overeating. So in that respect, it makes a lot of sense. Now, if you're interested in learning more about Bernarr Macfadden's vegetarian diets and physical culture principles, then I highly recommend that you visit my website, where I've got several of his books up, such as Eating for Health and Strength, which I've used for this particular video. I've used quite a lot of the information in there. There's also an excellent cookbook, which I kind of consider like the granny's best recipes, and that's the Physical Culture Cookbook. It's got everything. It's got recipes for soups, how to cook meat, how to cook eggs, puddings, cakes, everything you can think of, your vegetables. And it's a really nice cookbook in that at least it really does focus on cooking healthy. That's what I really like about it. So I encourage you to check it out. There's also Strength from Eating, which does cover foods to avoid and foods to enjoy for muscle building. All of these titles are available on my website, www.goldenerabookon.com. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video on the Lacto-Ovo vegetarian diet as was practiced by physical culturists such as Bernarr Macfadden, shown here at a very young age. As you can see, he was a bodybuilder, and he did make some decent gains, I guess, when he was young. And yeah, he practiced what he preached, and he followed these particular principles of eating throughout his entire life. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't to the Golden Era Bookworm, leave me your comments, and thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my work and my research on physical culture history, please donate via PayPal, subscribe and become a patron on my account. That also helps. Or you can donate your books and magazines. I'm always happy to hear if you have some to pass on to me, which I can add to my collection. And as I mentioned, you can always visit my website for out-of-print courses and books on old school bodybuilding and physical culture, www.goldenerabookworm.com. Anyway, that's it for me. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the Golden Era Bookworm. Bye for now. And for an entertaining look at the history of bodybuilding's supplement industry, I would highly recommend watching Subs the Movie, which I have collaborated in, available at Amazon Prime and Vimeo.
Hi everybody, I just want to recommend this phenomenal book, Vince's Secret Locker, volume number 2 by Carl Coyne. I've been looking at this for about 4 weeks and I can't put it down. If you get a chance, check it out. He also has a part 1 that I highly recommend also. Vince was the trainer to the stars and had an amazing, interesting gym that today there's still not equipment like it around. It was all made out of wood. He'll be on our radio show coming up probably in the next couple weeks or so. Have a great day, and again, highly recommend this book.